Welcome back to Sissy Maya. Make sure to subscribe to our channel to never miss an update. Additionally, consider subscribing to my Patreon to get access to these features, and much more.
Amelia took Maggie's hand and gave her a warm smile. I'm sure she will. Jenna is an absolute sweetheart, and her two little girls are like earthbound angels. Sometimes, she brings them by on the way to the park, and we chat while I fill them up with muffins and cookies. You couldn't ask for a nicer boss. Maggie exhaled deeply. I just hope she'll hire me. It's been tough finding work, and it's not always easy to find understanding employers. Amelia looked at the tall redhead with empathy, sensing her struggle. She set down her tray of muffins and wrapped her arms around Maggie, giving her a comforting hug. Maggie purred contentedly in her friend's embrace, and when Amelia let go, Maggie smiled gratefully. Thanks, Amelia. I really needed that. Amelia nodded. I could tell. Now go in there and get that job, girlfriend. And if you come back after your interview, stop by. We can celebrate with my specialty, jambalaya. Maggie gratefully accepted the invitation and waved goodbye as she made her way to the corner to wait for the light. The rush hour traffic was too heavy to cross in the middle of the street. Moments later, she stood in front of Jenna's toy store. As she grabbed the door handle, she hoped she was opening the door to a new job. Little did she know, she was opening the door to a new chapter in her life. Stepping into Jenna's, Maggie felt as if she had entered a children's paradise. The store was bursting with toys, games, and stuffed animals. The little girl inside her stirred, and she had to suppress the urge to giggle and play. She always felt a sense of wonder when she visited the pet shop to play with kittens, and the same feeling washed over her now. Her reverie was interrupted by the sounds of giggles and shouts as a playful pup dashed towards her, followed by two girls in hot pursuit. Maggie smiled at the trio. The pup was carrying a small shoe, and considering the smaller of the two girls was wearing socks but only one shoe, it wasn't hard to figure out the shoe's owner. The pup bounded up to Maggie, dropped the shoe at her feet, and wagged its tail happily. Maggie crouched down to cuddle the playful pup and was soon joined by the two adorable girls, who had to be Jenna's daughters. The older girl, with beautiful strawberry blonde hair in a ponytail and big green eyes, greeted her with a broad smile. Hi. I'm Becky. This is my mom's toy shop. We have all kinds of toys here. I can help you find something if you'd like. I know where everything is. Maggie knelt down and smiled warmly at the little sales assistant. Hi Becky. I'm Maggie, but you can call me Maggie the cat. Becky giggled. That's a funny name for a person. Why do they call you that? You're not a kitty cat. Maggie shrugged. I guess it's because I really like cats and kittens. Becky nodded. I like kittens too, but I really love puppies. She pointed to the pup Maggie was petting. That's Beagle Bailey. She's mine and Kathleen's puppy that Mommy gave us. Almost on cue, the second girl appeared, her face beaming with mischief. She looked like Becky's little sister, with the same strawberry blonde hair and big green eyes, but her hair was styled in cute pigtails. She smiled at Maggie, then squealed with joy when she saw her shoe. Grabbing it, she waved it at the pup. That's my shoe, Bailey. Becky took the toddler's hand and introduced her. This is Kathleen, my little sister. Bailey has a habit of chewing on her shoes, so we end up chasing him to get them back. Kathleen stepped forward with her arms outstretched. I'm Kathleen. Hug me. Maggie couldn't resist the request from such a charming little princess and embraced her. Becky rolled her eyes and chided her younger sibling. Kathleen, Mama says you're not supposed to hug strangers. Besides, I haven't even sold her anything yet. You need to wait until I do. Maggie struggled to hold back her laughter at the little salesgirl's antics. When she released Kathleen from the hug, Becky immediately took her hand and began leading her through the store. Maggie the cat, are you buying toys for a little girl or a little boy? I need to know so I can show you the best toys. Maggie halted the energetic girl. Becky, I'm not here to buy toys. I'm here to talk to your mom about a job. I think she's expecting me. Becky's eyes widened. She is. Mommy told me so. Wait right here. I'll go get her. The little girl dashed toward the back of the store, calling out, Mama, Mama, Mama. Kathleen followed, a bit slower and wobbling but still on her sister's heels. Not wanting to be left out, Beagle Bailey barked playfully and trailed the pair to the back. Maggie chuckled as she watched them disappear behind a curtain. A moment later, a smiling young woman emerged from the back room. With her long, wavy strawberry blonde hair and big green eyes, she could only be Jenna, the store's owner and the children's mother. Jenna greeted Maggie with a smile and immediately apologized. I'm really sorry I wasn't out front to greet you. I've been going through a new shipment that just arrived. I'm Jenna, owner and operator of this toy store and unofficial daycare center. I see you've already met my 2 little sales associates and our security animal. Maggie laughed. No need to apologize for being busy. It's actually a good sign for me, since I'm looking for a job. I loved meeting your kids. They're absolutely adorable. They must be the luckiest kids ever to have a mom who owns a toy store. Jenna sighed contentedly. I think I'm the lucky one living the dream. Those 2 little angels mean the world to me. They bring me so much love and joy that I can't imagine life without them. The proud mother blushed slightly and reached out to take Maggie's hand. I'm sorry, Maggie. I'm rambling on about my kids when you came here for a job interview. I would take you back to my so-called office, but I've got the kids in there with Rice Krispies treats and cartoons. That should keep them occupied for a while. If you don't mind sitting behind the counter, we can chat here. I'll keep an eye on the front. Maggie smiled warmly. That's fine with me, Jenna. And as for the girls, I can't blame you for being proud. They're precious little beauties. I think there's nothing more special than children. I love being around them. Jenna looked deeply into Maggie's green eyes and smiled. Yes, I can see that. You genuinely love kids, and I think you need to be around them. Bob was right when he spoke about you. I believe you'll be perfect for what I have in mind. Maggie was pleased that Jenna thought she was a good fit but was curious about what Bob had said. Jenna, if you don't mind, could you tell me what Bob mentioned about me? Jenna smiled warmly and squeezed Maggie's hand. Don't worry so much, dear. Bob didn't say a single bad word about you. He's a real sweetheart and a great judge of character. Trust me, if he didn't see the same qualities in you that I do, he never would have sent you to me. Bob has a knack for reading people, but I have a bit of a gift that goes even deeper. I can often get a pretty good sense of someone's soul just by looking into their eyes and holding their hand. Seeing the anxiety on Maggie's face, Jenna tried to reassure her. Relax, Maggie. I know you might be concerned about the transgender thing. But don't worry, your body doesn't define who you are any more than the uniform you wear does. It's not the wrapping that matters, it's the gift inside, and I think you have a wonderful gift. I hope I can help you share it with others. Maggie was deeply moved by Jenna's kindness and seemingly intuitive understanding. After experiencing rejection from so many others, finding someone as compassionate as Jenna felt like a blessing. Tears welled up in her eyes, and Jenna immediately embraced her, holding her like one of her own children, rocking her gently, rubbing her back, and murmuring soothing words. It's okay now, dear. Everything will be all right. You'll see. As Maggie's tears subsided, she pulled back and looked embarrassed. Jenna, I'm so sorry. I don't know what came over me. Crying in my boss's arms doesn't seem like the best way to start an interview. Jenna chuckled softly. Don't be embarrassed, Maggie. As a mom, I'm used to comforting a crying child. Sometimes, that's exactly what they need. Maggie smiled and shook her head. Thanks for the hug, Jenna. But I'm hardly a child anymore. I probably have at least 15 years on you. Jenna shook her head and whispered, You're still focusing on the wrapping, not the gift. The redhead looked puzzled. I'm sorry, Jenna. I didn't catch what you said. Jenna quickly changed the subject. Oh, it's nothing. I was just admiring your earrings. They're adorable. Maggie instinctively touched the gold kittens dangling from her ears. Thanks. They're my little kittens. Unfortunately, they're the only ones I can have. My landlord doesn't allow pets in my apartment, and I love animals, especially cats. I spend a lot of time at the pet store around the corner. The owner lets me play with and feed the kittens whenever I visit. I would have asked for a job there long ago if they had an opening. Jenna gave her that knowing look again. Yes, you definitely seem like a cat person, more like a kitten person. That's perfect because my store caters not just to two-legged babies but also to four-legged ones. We carry a selection of pet toys, so your love for animals as well as kids is a big plus. As far as I'm concerned, the job is yours. Maggie nearly fell off her stool in shock. This was too good to be true. Her big green eyes widened as she stammered, but, you didn't ask about my work history or references. Jenna shook her head. I don't need all that. You've already told me everything I need to know. You're exactly what I'm looking for. My only question now is, how soon can you start? Still in disbelief, Maggie struggled to respond. Well, I can start right now. If that's okay with you. Jenna's eyes lit up with excitement. Perfect. I've got something I want to show you, and now is as good a time as any. I have some specialty items that aren't on the shelves. They're by request only, my request. These are for customers I think really need them, and I think it's important for you to become familiar with them. Would you be willing to do that for me? Maggie found Jenna's cryptic behavior about the toys a bit unusual, but she was eager to start work and wasn't about to question her new boss. With a smile, she responded, Sure, Jenna. I'm ready for whatever you need. Jenna winked and put an arm around Maggie's shoulder, leading her through the curtain toward the storeroom. She stopped in front of a door and pulled a skeleton key from her pocket. As she unlocked the door and flipped on the light, the large room revealed itself mostly empty except for a floor-length mirror and a row of built-in shelves along one wall. The shelves were lined with small cardboard boxes, and Jenna walked over to them, Maggie following closely behind. She searched the third-level shelf, her fingers trailing across the boxes until she found the one she wanted. She handed it to Maggie, who instinctively began to open it. Before Maggie could examine the contents, Jenna placed a hand over hers. Maggie, before you open the box, I need to tell you something. The items in this room are made by my sister, Shelley. She's an extraordinary woman, and I think you'll really like her. Actually, she's coming over soon. We usually have dinner on Thursdays, but when I told her about you, she insisted we move it to tonight just to meet you. Maggie blushed slightly. I'd be honored to meet your sister. So, Jenna, you mentioned she makes all these items herself. Is she into arts and crafts? Jenna smiled and chuckled. Well, sort of, but not quite the arts and crafts you might be thinking of. I don't want to scare you, but my sister is a witch. Maggie's eyes widened. You mean a real witch, like with spells and potions? Jenna nodded. Yes, that's Shelley. But she's a good witch, I promise. She's a bit like Samantha from Bewitched, though she has a wilder side, mostly in her hair. Shelley knows her magic well. I've even been trying to persuade her to open a Wicca bookstore in the empty shop next door, but she says she needs an apprentice first. Unfortunately, she's still without children of her own. Until she can start her own place, I'll be featuring her magical items, like the one you're holding. Maggie stood there, stunned. Here was Jenna, a seemingly ordinary mother and toy store owner, revealing that her sister was a genuine witch. She gazed at Jenna, who reassured her with a comforting touch. Maggie, just trust me. Do you really think I'd have anything harmful in my shop, especially with the kids around? Maggie lowered her head, feeling a bit chastened. No, Jenna, I know you wouldn't. I'm just surprised. Can I see this specialty item now? You've got me really curious. Jenna winked and squeezed her hand. That's the spirit. Jenna removed the top from the small box, and Maggie peered inside to see what looked like a tennis ball. She gave Jenna a puzzled look, and Jenna chuckled lightly. Were you expecting something more unusual, like a miniature goat's head? Maggie blushed. To be honest, Jenna, I wasn't sure what to expect, but a tennis ball wasn't it? Jenna smiled warmly. Tell me, Maggie, what color is the tennis ball? Maggie gave Jenna a curious look but answered, it's green. An emerald green, I guess. Jenna nodded. That's what I thought you'd say. Now, if you could take the ball out of the box and smell it, let me know if you recognize the scent. Maggie picked up the ball and felt a slight jolt, almost like a static shock. Bringing it to her nose, she inhaled deeply. Her eyes widened, and a smile spread across her face. I know that smell. I've encountered it before. She paused for a moment before the recognition hit her. That's catnip. We use it for the kittens and cats at the pet store. They go crazy for it. Jenna nodded, a smile on her face. If I wasn't convinced before, I am now. Maggie, I'd like you to test the product for me. Maggie looked at Jenna, a bit confused, and Jenna laughed. It's just a ball, Maggie. Play with it, toss it around, bounce it. That's all you need to do. The doorbell chimed, and Jenna turned toward the entrance. That might be a customer. I'd better check it out. I'm going to close the door behind me, Mags. I'll be back in a few minutes. Have fun. Before Maggie could respond, Jenna was gone, leaving her alone with the ball. Holding the green tennis ball felt a bit silly, but if Jenna wanted her to play, she was going to. Maggie took a deep breath and bounced the ball across the room. Instantly, she felt a compulsion to chase it, and she dashed after it. Each time she picked up the ball, the strange electrical sensation surged through her, and the scent of catnip grew stronger. As she played, she became entirely absorbed in the bouncing ball, unaware of the changes occurring in her body. After a while, she noticed she had gotten down on all fours to chase the ball. Instead of slowing her down, she felt incredibly agile and light. The ball seemed to grow larger and more enticing with each bounce. Maggie had never felt so free, so joyful, and so alive. The ball eventually rolled in front of the mirror, and in her eagerness to catch it, she skidded across the polished wood floor and crashed into the floor-length mirror. Dazed, she glanced at her reflection. Sitting down to steady herself, she saw that her reflection was now that of a short-haired, rust-colored kitten. Her green eyes remained the same, but everything else had changed. She raised a paw to touch the mirror, seeing a tiny paw in the reflection. She tilted her head, admiring her perky ears and little whiskers. Getting on all fours, she strutted around, wiggling her tail and reveling in her new, adorable form. She was so absorbed in her reflection that she didn't hear the door open or notice anyone entering. A soft voice finally caught her attention. Hello, Maggie the cat. Though you're clearly Maggie the kitten, and what a beautiful little kitten you are. Maggie, now a kitten, looked up at the woman who had spoken. She was as strikingly beautiful as Jenna but much more petite, with hair in a dazzling array of highlights from platinum blonde to raven black. Her facial features had an almost oriental quality, but her emerald green eyes were unmistakably Jenna's. This had to be Shelley, Jenna's sister, and the witch who had transformed Maggie into a kitten. Feeling an inexplicable attraction to this woman, Maggie let out a soft purr, wishing Shelley would pick her up. Immediately, Shelley reached down and lifted the kitten, cradling her against her chest and gently stroking her soft fur. Maggie could scarcely believe it. This woman seemed to read her thoughts, as all she could manage was to purr. Shelley lifted the kitten from her chest and placed her on her lap. Yes, Maggie, I can read your thoughts. I'm the only one who can right now. Since my magic made this transformation possible, we're now telepathically linked while you're in kitten form. Shelley chuckled as she scratched the kitten behind the ears, instantly calming her. Maggie purred contentedly. That's better, isn't it, Maggie? Now, let's tackle your questions one at a time. Yes, you're a real kitten. No, the magic isn't permanent, it will wear off in about an hour. However, it could be permanent if you choose. As for how and why you're a kitten, that will take a bit more explanation. Cradling the rust-colored kitten, Shelley began her story. Within each of us reside two spirits. One is our true human essence, which usually resembles our physical form, but sometimes it's entirely different, causing great distress in the outside world. You're probably familiar with that pain. The second spirit is animal in nature. Everyone has an animal form of their own. Some are birds, horses, or bears. For you, Maggie, it's a cat, specifically a kitten. The magic ball you played with released that animal spirit. Tell me, Maggie, what color is the tennis ball? The kitten glanced at the ball by the mirror and thought her answer. Green. Exactly, Maggie. You saw green because it represents your connection to your spirit animal, your green eyes. Others might have seen white for a dove or brown for a horse. Each person sees a different color, reflecting their unique connection. The scent of the ball works similarly. You smelled catnip because it resonates with your spirit animal. Someone else would have detected a different scent related to their own animal spirit. Do you understand now? The kitten nodded, and Shelley's smile widened. She cuddled Maggie close. The magic turned you into a kitten because that's what you are at heart. I can feel your joy and contentment. As I mentioned, I can make this transformation permanent if that's your wish. Maggie considered Shelley's words. She had never experienced such peace and joy before. The comfort of being held and cuddled, the idea of lounging in a sunlit spot, and even the thought of fresh cream were all incredibly appealing. However, the idea of living as a kitten indefinitely was daunting. Growing up as a female kitten would attract attention from Toms, and the thought of eating a dead mouse was unappealing. Despite the current bliss, she wasn't ready for a permanent change. Looking up at Shelley, Maggie conveyed her decision. Shelley nodded in understanding. All right, Maggie. You have about 45 minutes left, but I have an idea. Would you like to try another tennis ball? Same temporary effects unless you choose otherwise. What do you say, kitten? Feeling adventurous? Maggie purred softly, signaling her willingness. Shelley retrieved another box from the shelf and opened it, letting the contents fall to the floor. Another tennis ball appeared, rolling across the room. Shelley asked Maggie to examine it closely and tell her the color. The kitten blinked and responded promptly. Shelley smiled. Pink, you say? I expected that. Now, I'll set you down. Go sniff the ball and tell me what you smell. The charming woman gently set the kitten down on the floor, and Maggie's soft paws approached the ball with caution. She sniffed it repeatedly, her whiskers twitching and her tail flicking with excitement. Shelley observed her response with a smile. Cookies, you say? Chocolate chip cookies, huh? That's not surprising. Well, Mags, the ball's in your court, so to speak. Have fun with it. Maggie nudged the ball with her paw, and as it began to roll, she pounced on it, sending it bouncing across the floor as she chased after it. The game of bounce, pounce, and chase resumed with the same enthusiasm as before. Immersed in the ball's hypnotic scent, Maggie was oblivious to the gradual changes reshaping her body, but Shelley watched with approval as Maggie continued to play. As Maggie's body transformed, she shifted from being on all fours to standing on her two legs. The ball seemed to shrink, and Maggie grew larger, losing some of her agility, but the game remained just as enjoyable. She threw the ball, which landed in Shelley's lap. As she ran to retrieve it, Shelley picked her up and tickled her. The sound of giggles surprised her, and she realized the laughter was coming from her own mouth. Shelley, sensing it was time, carried Maggie to the full-length mirror and set her down before it. Once again, Maggie saw her reflection, but instead of the kitten, she now saw a 6 or 7-year-old girl with long auburn curls, freckles, and wearing baby blue shorts, a matching t-shirt, and tennis shoes. She marveled at her reflection, running her little fingers over her face and through her long hair. The same peace and contentment from her kitten form washed over her, and she smiled widely. Shelley gave her a moment before gently guiding her back to the chair. Lifting her onto her lap, Shelley smiled at the little girl before her. Although the telepathic bond was no longer necessary, Shelley still sensed the joy mingled with fear and confusion in Maggie. She began to comfort her. Maggie, sweetheart, you can speak now, you know? Maggie took a deep breath, and her soft child's voice filled the air. Shelley, am I really a little girl? The young witch smiled warmly and stroked Maggie's long auburn hair. Yes, Maggie, you're truly a little girl. Maggie took another breath. Shelley, I turned into a little girl because of the magic ball, didn't I? Shelley nodded and replied, well, the magic ball helped a bit, but you were always a little girl inside. She lightly tapped Maggie's chest, and the little girl giggled. The magic ball just helped you reveal that part of yourself. Maggie grinned mischievously. Just like when I was a kitten, Shelley. That was so much fun. Shelley's green eyes sparkled as she looked at the little girl in her lap. Exactly, Maggie. This magic ball revealed your true human form. Remember how you saw the color and smelled the scent that connected to your animal spirit? Maggie nodded, smiling as Shelley continued. The second ball did the same thing. You saw pink, which represents being female. If you had been a boy inside, you would have seen blue. And you smelled cookies, chocolate chip cookies. Everyone knows kids love cookies, especially chocolate chip ones. You saw pink because you're a female, and you smelled cookies because you're a little girl at heart and now in body. Maggie trembled slightly, and Shelley noticed the fear in the child's big green eyes. Shelley, do I have to stop being a little girl when the magic wears off? I don't want to. I want to be a little girl all the time, please. I don't want to go back. Shelley embraced the frightened child, tears streaming down her face as she felt Maggie's pain deeply. She rocked the sobbing girl gently and whispered soothingly, no, sweetheart, you don't have to go back. You can stay a little girl and grow up as you always should have. Would you like that? Maggie wiped her tears, sniffled, and managed a weaker her, before resting her head against Shelley's chest and cuddling close. The young witch smiled warmly at the little girl, hugging her tightly. Your wish is my command, Maggie. Now, first, give me a big squeeze and a kiss. Maggie hugged Shelley with all her might and planted a kiss on her cheek. She looked up at Shelley with hopeful eyes. Am I all permanent now? With a playful grin, Shelley replied, actually, Maggie, I just wanted the hug and the kiss. Now, I'm going to make the magic permanent. Shelley gazed at the magic ball, which floated into the air and hovered in the center of the room. After blowing it a gentle kiss, the ball burst into a cloud of bubblegum-colored dust and vanished. Maggie's eyes widened with excitement. Shelley, am I permanent now? The young witch laughed. Yes, Maggie, you are permanent now. Thrilled, Maggie bounced off Shelley's lap and raced around the room, giggling and jumping for joy. Shelley watched, her heart swelling with the same joy Maggie felt. When Maggie finally stopped, her expression turned serious. Shelley, where am I going to live? I don't have a place to go or anyone to be with. Shelley quickly knelt down to Maggie's level and smiled tenderly. Maggie, you do have a place if you want it. My magic comes from my heart, and now you carry that magic with you always. I love you as if you were my own daughter, and if you'll let me, I want you to live with me and let me take care of you. Maggie's eyes grew wide with wonder. Does that mean you'd be my mommy? Shelley nodded. Yes, sweetheart, if you'll have me. Overjoyed, Maggie leaped into Shelley's arms, showering her with hugs and kisses. They held the embrace for a while before Maggie looked up at her new mom with a serious expression. Mama, I still have some bad memories. I remember some things from before you gave me magic. Shelley stroked her daughter's hair soothingly. Don't worry, sweetie. I'll give you some special tea tonight before bed, and when you wake up, you won't remember those bad things anymore. Shelley picked up her daughter and said, I think it's time to introduce you to the rest of your family. I know Jenna is eager to meet you, and I can't wait to see Becky's and Kathleen's reactions. Maggie rested her head on Shelley's shoulder and snuggled close. Mama, when I grow up, can I be a witch just like you? Shelley smiled proudly. Of course, darling. You're officially an apprentice witch now. Wow! Maggie exclaimed as Shelley carried her from the room. As Shelley stepped through the curtain onto the selling floor, holding Maggie, Jenna's eyes filled with tears of joy. She rushed over, hugging them both, and then extended her arms to Maggie. Maggie reached out, and Jenna pulled her in for a tight embrace. The little girl savored the moment and whispered, "Jenna, I don't think I can work for you anymore. I'm going to live with Shelley. She's my mom now, and she'll teach me magic." Jenna kissed the child's forehead. "I know, sweetie, and that's okay. I think you've got a much better job now." Maggie beamed. "Me too, Jenna." Jenna set Maggie down as Beagle Bailey, Becky, and finally Kathleen came rushing onto the floor. When Becky and Kathleen saw Maggie standing between their Aunt Shelley and their mom, they ran over to meet her. Becky smiled at the freckle-faced girl. "I'm Becky, and this is my little sister, Kathleen." Kathleen grinned proudly. "I'm Kathleen." Maggie rolled her eyes and sighed. "I know who you are. I'm Maggie, Maggie the cat." Becky looked at her curiously. "But Maggie the cat is a big girl." Maggie giggled. "Shelley used magic to turn me into a little girl, so I guess I'm more like Maggie the kitten now. And guess what, Becky? Shelley adopted me, and now she's my mom." Becky's green eyes widened. "That's cool, Maggie, because Aunt Shelley is Mommy's sister, which makes us like sisters too." Shelley knelt to the girl's level. "Actually, Becky, your mommy is now Maggie's Aunt Jenna, so you and Kathleen are Maggie's cousins." Maggie's face lit up as she grabbed her mama's hand. "Mama, since they're my cousins, can I be their cousin too?" Jenna laughed, giving her daughter a kiss and smiling at Shelley. "Yes, Maggie, you can be their cousin too." The three little girls erupted into joyous jumps and hugs. Suddenly, Kathleen let out a squeal when she saw Beagle Bailey had grabbed one of her shoes. "Bailey's got my shoe." The toddler dashed after the playful pup, and Becky, grinning mischievously, took Maggie's hand. "Come on, Maggie, help us catch Bailey. She's fast, and chasing her is so much fun." Maggie looked up at Shelley, her eyes asking for permission. Shelley smiled and nodded, giving her the go-ahead. Moments later, the shop was filled with the sound of laughter and giggles as the three girls pursued the spirited pup. Jenna took Shelley's hand and playfully remarked, "You know, Shelley, you kind of stole Maggie from me. She would have made a great salesgirl." Shelley sighed contentedly. "Maybe, but you didn't really lose a salesgirl. You gained a niece, and I got a daughter. I think we all got exactly what we wanted." The two sisters hugged, and as they watched their children play joyfully, it was clear that everyone had indeed received their heart's desire.